It's the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. If you don't know, now you know. If you ain't listening, why not? Boom.
This is the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Scotty, Mike, and Brian. With the quick picks that'll make you the quick bucks. We're going to succinctly cover the quick picks that will make you money. All right, Mike, take us away with the weather segment.
There's really nothing to note. Nothing that should affect game conditions this week.
All right, well, that was pretty quick. Let's go ahead and get on to the quarterback picks. And Scotty, you're going to go ahead and start us off.
All right. So the quarterback I want to talk about this week is some Ryan Tannehill going against Cleveland. It is the highest point total with 54 points. We have Tennessee favored by 5.5. Cleveland is below average against the pass. They're currently 23rd in the DVOA rankings. Tannehill has been in a little bit of a rut over the past couple weeks, but those 4 games have been against top 10 passing defenses. So this is going to be an opportunity for him to bounce back and have a good game.
Yeah, also to kind of add to that is, I mean, he hasn't had to carry his weight because, you know, we got the monster running back on that same team, so just lean on him all the way through.
Yeah, and they run at a pace fast enough for both of them to produce, even if they don't really correlate with each other.
Mike, would you ever think about doing a triple stack with Henry and Tannehill and then a receiver on there?
I'd do it every now and then. This slate, it might be okay because there's not a huge amount of options, but if you get a slate with like Mahomes and a healthy Kyler Murray and everything like that, you might not want to go that route, because for Ryan Tannehill since he's not, he does do a little bit of rushing, but for him to get there, it's going to need to be full on air attack.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do my pick, and that is going to be some Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is sitting at 6,300. I know he's been a little bit wonky so far. I mean, I feel like he's kind of stealing the role from Kamara because he's gotten, 2 rushing touchdowns the past 2 games, which is insane. I guess he's so used to being a gadget quarterback that he's just stealing away the touchdowns. He's going up against a super weak defense against Atlanta. I bet you they're going to try to get him to air it out a little bit more, just because the fact that, I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen what happens to running quarterbacks. At the end of the day, they get some big hits and then they're completely out. And I think that they're basically going to try to get him used to throwing the ball a little bit more. And regardless, he's going to get some points. And Atlanta also just had a monster game against the Raiders. So if that type of situation happens, then he's going to have to throw the ball. He's going to be forced to. So I think that could be a possibility as well.
Taysom Tebow 2.0. But I don't hate it. He produced against Atlanta the first time. He was also priced a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
But Atlanta's defense has been better in the past couple of weeks. So there is definitely upset potential.
Agreed.
There with them, but I'm hoping that
they're
doing so by overplaying their talent. So
yeah, I'm hoping that upset potential forces him to throw the ball more, getting more passing yards.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
Well, I'm going to go down to 2 bad teams playing each other with some Mitchell Trubisky. If he starts this week at 5,400, which I just think Matt Nagy wants to play Mitchell Trubisky, and I will be really surprised if he puts Foles back in there, if Foles is healthy.
Yeah.
But Trubisky's sitting at 5,400, and he's going up against Detroit, whose defense hasn't been great. They are without Patricia, so it could turn around and they could all just start playing well because Patricia's gone. The whole bad coach is gone, suddenly we're a good team narrative. But Trubisky has rushing upside. When he was in the Millie Maker 2 years ago, it was against Detroit, and he had 3 passing touchdowns.
There was one game where he had 5 touchdowns. We remember him making somebody so much money, and he was like 1% owned.
I think it was 3 passing and 1 or 2 on the ground, and just that rushing upside. He plays kind of wild, so down at 5,400, he can definitely bring the value.
I cannot disagree with that. I mean, anytime you get a chance at getting Trubisky that cheap, he's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think he's been confirmed the starter for this week. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that always helps out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the running backs. And I'm going to start us off with that one. And I'm going to be right on top of Kenyon Drake. He had 22 attempts compared to 6 attempts to Chase Edmonds. They had pretty much the same receptions as each other. I think it was 4-3. He's sitting at a very cheap price for a running back, starting running back, at 5,700. He's had some very strong games this season, but he's been pretty much hit or miss. He's got a low base, but a very high ceiling. And, I think that's a pretty good target for a tournament pick. So I wouldn't put him in cash games, but I'd definitely focus on him in tournaments.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest Kenyon Drake fan, but he is starting to play better.
Yeah.
I love my Chase Edmonds. So.
Yeah. All right, Mike. What about your pick?
I'm going to go with some Jonathan Taylor at 5,700 versus Houston.
Well, I got my, you avenged me from the other week when I stole your sneaky pick.
Oh, is that going to be your sneaky pick,
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor?
Yep.
Oh, man. Well,
Feels good, right? Feels good.
Just when it was starting to look bad for Taylor, the week prior to last, he got workhorse usage for the first time, and then, of course, as soon as he gets that usage, he is a close contact with his girlfriend who had COVID, so he had to sit out last week. But the Texans should be without Fuller.
Boom, boom. Yep.
You could see Colts, doing some bracket coverage on Brandon Cooks and sort of holding him down, and it could set up the possibility for this to be a game where the Colts just run it down Houston's throat the whole time.
Yep. 100% agree.
Yeah, not to mention the Texans are giving up 154 rushing yards per game, which is somehow not the worst in the league, but it is the second worst.
Yeah, it is.
I take it Scotty had some notes on him as well.
I did.
He might have not been that sneaky, Brian. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all right.
I mean, you pointed out some good comments on why it would be kind of sneaky.
I pointed out why it'd be a good play. I don't know if I pointed out why it'd be sneaky. But
all right. Well, that was my sneaky pick. All right, Scotty, what about your running back pick?
All right, so this week I'm going to pay up a little bit and get some Austin Eckler going against New England at 7,100. It is a 47-point total with the Chargers favored by 1. He did get his first game back last week. He ended up taking over the lead role again. Wasn't really much of a committee backfield. He had 14 carries, 16 targets. He's going against a New England team that's 28th against the rush. And I think this game could be a little under the radar. I think it has the potential to be a shootout. You have Herbert, who's throwing the ball a lot. Both teams are bottom 10 defenses. So I think this is going to be a matchup that maybe not a ton of people are looking at as much as they should be.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is they said over and over in like all the notes and everything that I read that they were not going to use Eckler as like a workhorse. And whoo, did that prove wrong? I mean, they were like, yeah, we're going to, have a committee. It's, everybody's going to have a shot at it. Nope. It was all Eckler.
Yeah, there you got to look at the actions more than coach speak, because coaches lie. They
distract.
Eckler had been out a long time. He had been posting videos of him working out. There was a interview the week prior with him, or leading up to the game, where he said, I've been doing everything possible to try and make this thing hurt this week, and I can't do that. It's good to go.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times it's hard to fade what the coaches are going to do, but
yeah,
look at it all.
All right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the New England offense is getting closer to full strength. They're getting Sonny Michel back this week, so that helps the shootout narrative a little bit. They also have James White back in there.
Gotcha. Well, let's move on to wide receiver. And Scotty, you're going to go ahead and start us off with that.
All right. So the one I'm liking this week, he might be a bit of a risk, but he's at such a cheap price point, he's going to be worth it. Kiki Kuti going against Indianapolis at 3,500. It is a 51.5 point total. It's like a top 5 on the week in point totals.
Mm-hmm.
Normally he wouldn't really be in play, but both Cobb and Fuller are out, so he's going to step into the wide receiver 2 role for the Texans, and he's at a great price point in a matchup where Houston's going to have to throw it a lot to keep up.
Not gonna lie, I thought about taking notes on him, and I strayed away, but I definitely agree. I was just like, I went a little bit up on price and was looking at some Brandon Cooks, but I completely agree, because I mean, it's definitely worth a shot considering the people that are out on that team.
Yeah, he doesn't have too much of a track record to go off of, but he is at a really good price point this week.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I debated it. I was like, Cooks or Coutier? Cooks or Coutier? So
he's also, as far as trying to play that Will Fuller or Brandon Cooks role in that offense, he is fast. He runs a 4.43 40, and that's what, 86th percentile in the league. I can look up what Fuller runs here, which is probably ridiculous, but it's not going to be too much.
I guess we all kind of target the same guys. Is what I'm hearing here. You got it. You got the stats, Mike?
It's coming up. Internet's being a little slow. Oh yeah, well Fuller's a 4.32, so this guy is just a tenth a second slower, but he'll still be able to provide that, and Cook should draw all the coverage.
Yeah. All right, Mike, go ahead and take us away with your wide receiver pick.
Well, I'm gonna go with a little Rashad Perryman versus Vegas, sitting at 3,900. While Darnold did not have a great game last week, we did see him do something that he hasn't really done too much in his recent career, and that's use some receivers other than Jamison Crowder. Crowder got 5 targets, Perryman got 8, and Rashad Perryman's he's got an ADOT of 15.3 yards. They usually throw to him farther down the field. Vegas doesn't have the best defense for stopping opponents, and Rashad Perriman could easily just catch half of those targets and deliver a 20-point game with how he's targeted.
I mean, he was never a bad receiver while he was on Tampa Bay. He just never had a big role. So I could see it, especially going up against Las Vegas, although Las Vegas had the wackiest game last week. I mean, who would have ever expected them to, they put up, 6 points? That's bizarre, but I don't expect that to happen again.
You never know. Sam Darnold coming in, man.
Yeah.
He just needed a week to knock off the rust.
I guess. He needs to stop making out with random girls that have mono and seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
But all right, so my pick that I was looking at is some Cooper Kupp. I think he's sitting pretty mid-range at 6,100. Fairly high game point total on this slate, not necessarily on every slate. It's sitting at 49 points. He's typically boomer bust. You never know who they're going to choose, if it's going to be him or Woods that's going to go off. But when Cooper Kupp goes off, he goes off. So, and then also Arizona is 5th on run defense, and they're also able to put up points, which means there's a potential shootout narrative in that situation as well. So I'm in between choosing Kupp and Woods, but I'm going to lean on some Kupp on this one just because I feel like he's overdue a big game.
And I would go Woods because Woods is cheaper, but not by much.
Not that much. By what, like 200?
Yeah, about 200.
Yeah.
I think Woods is better, but that's
neither here
just.
All right. Well, let's move on to tight end. And tight end is going to be started off with Mike.
All right. I'm going to go back to that Chicago-Detroit game, and I'm going to be taking some TJ Hawkinson. Patricia is gone, so purely a tournament play, but let's see if the new coaching staff knows what they have in Hawkinson, and
you guys can both get your final blow-up game that you've been waiting for weeks.
But if they want to keep their jobs, they probably,
should use the weapon.
Find a way to get him more opportunities. So
I 100% agree. He's been a beast. It's just you've had an awful coach the whole time on the Lions. So.
But Chicago's a good matchup for tight ends too, so it should be the Hawkinson and Swift show.
Yeah, and on top of it, Chicago can't get any offense going whatsoever. I mean, unless they switch things up.
Yeah. Some Trubisky magic, man.
I mean, he can win you $1 million with 1% owned. But, all right, Scotty, what's your tight end pick?
Well, I hate to do it, but I'm going to go with some Robert Tonyan going against Philly this week. He's sitting at a really good price point at $3,700, and Philly has struggled against tight ends quite a bit throughout the year. He doesn't have a ton of targets, but he does have 7 touchdowns on the year, which is tied for first amongst tight ends. So I think this is a matchup where he can definitely blow up and get you some points.
Yeah, I had some notes on him as well, but I didn't expect you to steal it from me. I expected Mike to. But no, I had notes on him. And again, I mean, same thing. Just Eagles are just not good against tight end, and your offense has just been looking rough. So, I mean, not trying to bring attention to that, but I'm surprised that Tonyan hasn't gone up in price. I mean, he's sitting still really cheap at 37. But yeah, the other guy that I had notes on was some Mike Gesicki, sitting at 4,200, and he seems to be able to connect with both Tua and Fitz because it's kind of up in the air who's going to start right now. because they said they want Tua to start, but then they also don't know if his thumb's still hurt or what's going on. And he, the past 3 games, he's been averaging targets of 5 times per game, and he'll definitely need to produce a touchdown to produce value, but I think it could happen. And I also think that people might be off the game because it's not supposed to be one of the high point targeted games.
I don't hate it.
Woo! That's like the best compliment I can get from Mike. I don't hate it.
It's one of those things where the talent's there. It's just kind of like, why did he stop getting used? Or he's getting 5 targets, but he just hasn't been as focal point of the offense as he seemed to be at the end of last season.
Yeah, makes sense.
He had that one blow up game, and then he's done nothing so far this season. So I'm just hoping they start getting back to him a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing that I like with him, because like still the quarterback situation's up in the air, is he gets targets regardless of who's there. So it's just if he can produce on those targets. So let's move on to some defense. And this one, I don't know if anybody's going to agree with, but I'm looking at some Colts defense. They're sitting at 3,000. I'm pretty sure they're the highest point total of the week at 52.5 from what I can see, which is why I think that you guys are all going to disagree with this. But the Colts have had some very strong showings against good teams, like against Minnesota, against Tennessee, and against Detroit, which I guess you could like debate that Detroit's not that good of a team, but we all know that they can throw and they can put up some yardage. And the Texans have lost their best weapons, as we've mentioned before, and Fuller. And who else is missing?
Randall Cobb.
Cobb, yep. And they're mostly known as a throwing team, which means, it's meant more for some interceptions that are going to potentially be there. So I really think the Colts can have a really strong showing on defense.
Yeah, the good thing is that they do have the secondary to kind of pull those in, and high point total games aren't necessarily bad for defenses because there's generally a lot of passing in them. But I will say, even though the team's total record doesn't show it, Deshaun Watson's playing the best football of his career right now, so it just happens to be for nothing because of the state of the team.
He's been a phenomenal quarterback his whole career. I mean, as far as a starting professional quarterback, he's one of the best. He's just not ever had a line, and he's never had anybody to help him out.
Oh yeah, well he's not, but he's playing. But I mean, he's playing a lot cleaner. He's spreading the ball out. He's seeing the field a lot better than he was in past seasons. It's not saying he was bad in past seasons, but where he's at this season is at another level than it's been in past seasons, and it's not quite as obvious on the just due to the fact that they're losing so much. Yeah. But
I agree. I mean, it was more for the focus of the fact that they lost a few weapons. But all right, so Scotty, go ahead and take us away with your defensive pick.
All right. So I know it's a little risky to pick a defense against a team that just fired their head coach. Weirdly enough, it always seems like teams seem to do better after they lose their head coach. But the Bears are sitting at a pretty good price point of 3,100 going against Detroit. It is a pretty low total at 44 points. Chicago favored by 3. And the Bears are a top 5 defense in the DVOA rankings. So I like them at this price point this week. I'm surprised they're not a little bit more expensive.
They have a pretty good defense for the most part. All right, Mike. Your defense?
Well, y'all should know by now, I don't pay anything for defenses. And looking at the cheap options this week,
Let me guess,
I'm
Jets.
going to go with the Giants at 2,200. And it sounds crazy, and as much as Russell Wilson has been awesome this year, and I love him for it, Brian doesn't, but
I absolutely hate that.
his O-line does kind of stink. And the Giants defense is actually pretty good. They've got a decent pass rush, and they don't have Jalen Ramsey corners, but they have decent corners, and Metcalf got a little banged up in the Monday night game. Not enough to completely stop him, but if he's not all healed up from that, and the Giants can get to Russ before he can get to Metcalf, we could see a few of those errant Russell Wilson throws and get some more stacks. And Philly was getting to him Monday night.
I would not disagree with that at all. If we were sure, is Danny Dimes still playing? Because I know he was potentially injured.
Oh no, he's got a
He's
hamstring.
good?
It's going to be Colt McCoy.
So is he playing or not? No.
I don't think he is.
Ooh. And you're willing to go up against the defense with Colt McCoy?
See, I don't think they're going to let Russ cook in this game.
The
Because
Giants defense is actually pretty decent, so I don't disagree with it on that end. It's just if Danny Dimes was in there, then I wouldn't be as worried.
I'd be more concerned about the Giants quarterback if I thought that they were going to have Russ throwing the ball more this game. But you kind of started to see it happen Monday night, where they started to go back to those old running habits, and they really kept that game close. It's not like they just... it felt like Seattle was going to win the whole time, but
And
there
Chris
was never...
Carson controlled the
It
game.
wasn't a... Yeah, it wasn't a 30-7 victory, It was... That game was winnable up until the last 3 minutes for the Eagles if they wanted to get something together.
Yeah. All right, it's time for the sneaky pick of the week. And to start us off, I'm just going to throw it to Scotty.
So for this week, I'm actually looking at some Derek Carr going against the Jets. I think this game's going to be kind of under the radar because it is a game with the Jets. The Raiders are favored by 8, but the Jets are last against the pass in the DVOA rankings, and they are missing their top 2 DBs. So they have a bunch of rookies in the secondary, which will only help his case. And also, the Jets are a top 10 run defense, and we have Josh Jacobs questionable this week. So this is going to be a matchup where Carr might need to do a little bit more than people expect. And he's sitting at 5,800, which is a really good price point.
I could see that.
Yeah. Run it back with Rashad Perryman.
Right.
All right, and since Mike took away my sneaky pick, I'm going to throw him the next sneaky pick.
Okay, my sneaky pick is going to be T. Higgins at 4,600. Brandon Allen is the one throwing the ball to him, but he did look better than Ryan Finley. And T. Higgins is a wide receiver 1, priced down at 4,600. He's still a good receiver, and there's still potential for him to produce, given that price point.
Yeah. Only thing I worry about there is just the Dolphins' defense has actually been really good this year. But
they're overplaying their hand, but they're
making whatever quarterback start actually look good.
And Higgins is a good receiver. He can get open against the Dolphins. And they also, it's a team with 3 good wide receivers to cover. So it's not just taking out an option here or there. It's you got to cover the whole field or someone's going to be open.
Gotcha.
But you didn't possibly have a backup sneaky pick, Brian?
No, you took mine, so I'm gonna take an L on that one.
Okay, well, I'll just throw in Cam Akers. Been waiting for him to get the hot hand, and he got the hot hand last week, breaking off a 61-yard run. It's not a great defensive matchup for him, but he also has pass catching upside and a skill set. And one of the best things he was known for in college was evading tackles and working with a bad O-line. So
nice.
He could also be a sneaky one, but sometimes it's not always fun to see what we got wrong, but it's definitely fun to see what we got right. And I'll have to take a massive L on Sam Darnold last week. It was not that great a game for him. Still working out the kinks. I guess one of the good ones I had was James Robinson. He put up around 23 or 24, maybe 22, but it was still 3 to 4x his value. And Kareem Hunt didn't pan out. The Jets did work out for what I paid for him. So they got their little fire sign. But yeah, Waller busted because after saying it's been paying to pay up for tight ends this season, it didn't pay to pay up for anyone but Kelsey. So only pay up for Kelsey this season.
Yeah, I pretty much had a kind of mediocre weekend for the most part. Like, I had nobody that would win you a tournament, but nobody that would lose you a tournament. Justin Herbert did all right with 20 points. Then the 2 guys I have notes on, Nick Chubb and Gallman, they did pretty well. I mean, Chubb put up, he put up 29 points. That would have been a good one. And then Gallman put up, for his value, he put up 18 points, so he was kind of worth it with 5,600. And besides that, I was just kind of in the middle ground, and it didn't really hit anything big, didn't hit anything wrong, so just kind of mediocre ground.
Ooh, gut check!
On to the gut check.
All right. How about we have Scotty start us off?
All right. Okay. So, gonna go ahead and plug in some Tannehill. And running back wise, I'm gonna go ahead and do some Eckler and some Taylor. Pretty much just gonna go right down my list for the most part.
Yeah.
All right. Wide receiver wise, we're gonna do is it QTA or QD? I legitimately don't know.
I don't know either. Mike would be
I've
the one
always
that would
heard
know.
QD or
Yeah,
QT.
I thought it was QD, but
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, I'm going to plug him in. And wide receiver wise, let's save a little bit of money with some Corey Davis. And for the last receiver, let me do some Myers for New England. Tight end wise, we're going to go ahead and do Tunyon.
Mm-hmm.
And defense, we're going to go ahead and plug that in. Let's do that Chicago defense. And oh, shoot. That's way too much money. Let's do Hopkins against the Rams. And we'll go ahead and switch out Corey Davis for A.J. Brown. Oh, no, I can't afford A.J. Brown.
Switching it
All
up.
right. All right, so we'll swap out the Bears defense for a defense that is 200 cheaper. Let's do the Tennessee defense, I guess. And then we'll do A.J. Brown. That's a little bit of a weird one, but...
So,
all right.
My turn.
All right.
Let's look. Well, I'm going to start off with some Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill, let's see who we're going to pair you up with. Let's look. Gonna go with some Emmanuel Sanders. I'm gonna go with my Kenyon Drake pick. And I'm gonna stick with some Chubb because he's been kind of the only focal point for the Browns offense. Let's move on to the defense. And defense, I'm going to go with my Colts, even though it's a little bit weird. At 3,000. I'm still looking not too bad, but I'm also going to jump on a bandwagon of some Robert Tonyan. I wanted to say Tanyan, but that's going to give me a lot of money. I've got $6,300 for 2 wide receivers in a flex position. So I've got some money to spend up and some money to, keep in a good range here. Let's see. This might be a weird one, but I'm going to go with some Mike Williams because he has a lot of boom or bust potential. And I feel like New England's going to try to shut down their star receiver with Allen. So let's see. So that gives me $7,000 per position for the next 2. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm going to go with some Cooper Kupp. And that gives me $8,000 on the last position. And again, just to be a little bit different than normal, I'm going to go with some DeAndre Hopkins because he's a beast, even though he's going up against a really good receiving defense.
All right, so that concludes the Week 13 edition of the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully you can take these picks, go out there, and win you some money. That's going to do it for us this week. Peace.